Hey guys, it's Paulie with J&P Cycles. Today I have this 1999 Dyna in the studio, and I'm going to show you how to do a 10,000 mile service. All right, we'll get this thing started by draining the fluids, changing the filter, and then I'll walk you through everything else that's entailed with doing the service. I like to break all the bolts loose a little bit before I start undoing them, just to keep it from trying to warp. I've already set my torque wrench to 40 inch-pounds. There it is. So I'm not going to add the fluid yet. I'm going to get everything drained. I'm going to have to adjust the clutch most likely, so I'm not going to mess with anything else on that until we get through. I'm going to go ahead and pull the dipstick out so that the oil drains faster. All right, so the main seal of this plug is this little O-ring right here. And even though it looks like it's in okay shape, I'm not gonna take a chance of saving $1 and having an oil leak. So I'll replace that with a new one. And I'll know I'm good to go. So now I can go put the drain plug back in. I don't like using an extension on torque, but I don't really have a choice because this bike is so low. Go ahead and back out this dipstick as well for the transmission. Let that fluid drain on out. Go ahead and change this O-ring as well. It's almost stopped dripping. I'll be able to plug it up. All right, now that all the fluids are drained, I'm gonna put the new filter on. But before I do, I'm going to put some oil in it. This prevents a completely dry startup, so that there's a little bit of oil to prime up quickly. And then I put the oil around the ring because that'll prevent it from sticking to the engine once it heats up. Do not use a wrench on this. Once you've made contact, you're gonna go about another half turn, and that's all you want. You don't wanna use a wrench on this because it'll be next to impossible to remove the next time. Now, before I remove the drain tray, I'm gonna take some brake parts cleaner and spray off the excess oil. Now I'm gonna remove the switch housing so that I can lube my throttle and idle cable. There's a special tool to be able to do this a little better. I don't have that tool though, so I'm just gonna do it the way that you would most likely be doing it in your garage. And that is aim the nozzle right down into the hole of the cable and spray. Then after this, I'll go over and break loose the clutch cable so we can lube that. I'll break the lock nut loose, and then I can collapse the cable. All right, since the cable's collapsed, all I have to do is pull out and I can get right to the cable. And while you have it out, you can check, make sure there's no frays around the end. Now I can adjust the clutch and we will be moving on. Now I'll break the lock nut loose. All right, now screw this in until you make contact. All right, it's just lightly seated. Now go back a half to one turn. I'll go a little more than a half. That should be good. Spin that up. Now I just want to make sure I'm at good torque. It's already snug, so I know I can't move enough to mess with my adjustment. All right, so we're good. Now I'll adjust the cable until I have a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch in play at the top. Just a little bit of free play is all we want. Next thing we're going to do after I get this cover on is check the primary chain tension. All right, so to adjust the primary chain, we're going to have to pop the inspection cover off here. So I want to see the tension here, and we have about 5/8 of an inch deflection, which is right where I want it to be. Sorry, you can't really see the chain right now, but I'm not going to take the whole primary off just to show you. I'll put the new gasket, reinstall this bad boy. Then I'll get my torque wrench and set to 100 inch-pounds. Now I will add the primary fluid, the transmission fluid, and the oil, and move on to the rest of the service. So I'll put about 3/4 of this quart in. This bike calls for about a quart, but I'll put 3/4 of it in. All right, I'm going to want to put the rest of that quart in. All right, perfect. All right, now with the new gasket, I'll put the derby cover back on. Now I will get my torque wrench and torque in the correct sequence. Move down here to number 2. The transmission holds 20 to 24 ounces, so I'll put in 20 and then we'll check it. Transmission fluid is checked with the bike upright, so I can check this while it's still on the lift. Now I'll place the dipstick in with the bike upright until the threads just rest, and then pull out, and you'll see we are right at our full mark, so we're good to go. 20 ounces. We'll tighten this bad boy up to 25 inch-pounds. I'm going to put about 2.5 quarts in the oil. That has to be checked on level ground with the bike on the Jiffy stand. I don't want to overfill it. It's a lot easier to add than it is to get it out. All right, the bike's all full of fluids, so I will move on to servicing the air filter. It looks pretty nice all the way around, except right down on the bottom, you got some black, so I'm going to go take it off and go wash it. If this was a K&N filter, I would clean it and then let it dry and then oil it. But this is a dry style, so all I'm doing is cleaning it and then letting it dry. Get some warm water going. When you're rinsing this out after you spray the K&N cleaner, you want to wash from the inside out so that any dirt particles that are in there, you're pushing out. You're not like pushing it into the filter. I'll take this out, I'll shake it out, and then I'll let it sit to dry because you don't want to force air through it to let it dry. All right, while the air cleaner dries, I'm going to keep doing the rest of the service. Moving on to the tires, I'm going to check air pressure and check the tread depth. 28 pounds of pressure, we're a little bit low. Oh, 41 pounds, that's what I want. All right, the pressure's right, but this tire is worn. It's time to be replaced. So I'm going to recommend that this person buys new tires because this is past the wear life. All right, I'm looking at this tire. I can see it needs replaced, but I'm going to go ahead and check the air pressure so it's at least good until he replaces the tire. And we're at 28 on this one as well. It should be 42. This tire doesn't show any sign of dry rot either, but doesn't really matter because it's worn out. All right, now I'm going to inspect the belt and the pulley. The belt has pretty good deflection. It's not too tight, not too loose. The pulley actually doesn't have much wear at all. We're only at 10,000 miles, so I wouldn't really expect much. And overall, it looks like it's in good shape. All right, now I'm gonna inspect the brake lines and oil lines on the bike, make sure there's no leaks anywhere. You can see there's nothing there. No leaks anywhere on the front brake line. The rear brake line, the one place that you can possibly get a leak is right about here. That's where the pressure sensor is for the brake light. And a lot of times those will go bad, but everything seems to be in good shape here. Don't see any signs of anything leaking on this bike. It's in really, really good shape, especially to be almost 20 years old. All right, I'm gonna look at the jiffy stand now. I can see the spring is in good shape. I'll go ahead and lube up. And yeah, everything moves freely there. So we're good to go on that. Next up on the service is to check out the brake pads. So give them a look-see, and there's plenty of pad left on the rear. Pedal feels nice. All right, on the front brakes, they look to be in pretty much just as good a shape as the rear. All right, next up is the spark plugs. I'll start by removing the boot. The plug doesn't look bad. Doesn't seem to be running too rich or lean. Check the gap on the new plug. It's nowhere near where it needs to be. All right, so there we are, we're at 40. Don't always trust that the plug is gonna be right. Some people put anti-seize on this. I never do, but that's just me. If you want to, feel free to throw some anti-seize on your spark plugs. I'll torque this boy down to 15 foot-pounds. When you're doing this, I always like to look at the plug, make sure there's no wear, anything that could have been vibrating, rubbing metal on the rubber, especially when you have little covers like this that want to touch the plug wire. The rear cylinder seems to be running a little richer. So now I'm going to go over the bike and check the critical fasteners, make sure that they are torqued to spec. I'm not going to do the axles, even though I normally would, because I am going to change these tires out in the next week, so I'll check it then. Now I can let the bike down so that we can check all the electrical switches and check out the brake fluid level and fill if needed. Now I'll check all of my switches, make sure all my lights are good. So I can see the headlight is on, tail light is on. Rear brake switch works, front brake switch works. Right turn signal works front and rear. Same for the left. High beam. Horn works. And we know the bike starts up, so we're good to go on all that. All right, the brake fluid level is good and it's not all murky, so just put that right back on. Rear level's a little low, but the fluid looks nice. And make a mess. Seal kind of pushed some out, so I just want to clean that up a little bit. With all that done, the air cleaner is nice and dry now, so I can reinstall it. Everything's all wrapped up, so I'm going to pull the bike off the lift, start it up, get the engine up to operating temperature so I can check the oil level. So we're still a little bit low, but I want to get it up to full operating temperature. So we're within the marks between add and full, but I want to take it for a test ride. Once it's test ridden, I will know that it's not overfilled. All right, so there's your 10,000 mile service. There's a few things that'll be different on different motorcycles, so make sure you have your owner's manual to be sure you hit everything you need. That was for a 1999 Dyna. A few things would be different if you have a hydraulic clutch or things like that. But overall, that's how you do a 10,000 mile service. I'm Paulie with JP Cycles. Ride them, don't hide them. Ride it like you can fix it.